As usual, today's Saturday, March 15th, 2025, and Trudeau gone, stepped down yesterday. Carbon tax gone, restructured down to zero because they can only restructure it. They can change the price. They can't remove it. So they changed the price to zero. That's what they did. They didn't remove the carbon tax. Well, they removed the carbon tax by zeroing it out. That's what they did. But it's gone effectively, but not, they could increase it at any time at this point in time. The food professor is poking holes in this whole carbon tax thing as well. Jagmeet Singh wants to support the Liberals now. I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked by this news. Jagmeet Singh supporting the Liberals. UBC's Conservative Club has been allowed to be formed, so that's interesting. And I was wrong yesterday. I reported that Freeland was going to be declining transport. She was sworn in as transport minister yesterday, so I got that wrong. 87% of Carney's cabinet is the same as Trudeau's cabinet. So these people are basic, like, here's the new boss, same as the old boss, right? It's exactly the same. And I think they're going to put the carbon tax, again, they've said they're going to put the carbon tax into a different part of the supply chain. And so when the gas ticks up in price, that's the plan. They just put it into a different part of the supply chain. So it will tick up. It'll just take a little bit of time to trickle in. And when it trickles in, they'll say, oh, there's nothing we can do about that. You know, we got to save the environment, which is absolutely nonsense. Absolute nonsense. We've got a lot of Carney because Carney was sworn in yesterday. Justin Trudeau stepped down. Mark Carney was sworn in as prime minister and then had a signing ceremony, which I've never seen before in Canadian politics. Have you seen that? Nope. So he did this very, very fancy signing ceremony with a pen, right? I don't know if he handed pens out. I didn't see that, but still, it was very Trumpian. So American politics being imported by the Liberals as usual. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is crying again. And the news is reporting, leading reports says Justin Trudeau has formally stepped down as Canada's prime minister, right? And Cynthia says, bye, fag. Right. Yes, I just thought it was funny. Here is Marty up north, and he's sharing a picture of the Governor General consoling a crying prime minister. And this is a metaphor for what's been going on for the last 10 years. People have been propping this guy up while he's been sobbing in a corner, and it's ridiculous. And the damage that has been done, we really should have fixed this problem months ago, if not years ago. Our system has been corrupted and usurped and used against us. And I don't trust this new crop of people coming in. I just thought it was weird that Justin Trudeau was needing to be consoled by the Governor General, and the whole image of it is weak. It's weak. This is, Bradshaw says, a prime minister without a seat in Canada getting sworn in looks like a funeral for Canada. It does. There's a lot of similarities there, right? And, it's early, but there's a whole bunch of people with very interesting connections in attendance. Gerald Butts is there. All of the disgraced, maybe that's too strong a word, but yeah, maybe not. Lametti, Mendocino, all these people who were out of favor in the Trudeau government have kind of prominent positions under this Carney government. So that's interesting to note as well. Mark Nixon says 0.27% of Canada's population voted for Mark Carney. An unelected civilian is walking in to be sworn in as the 24th Prime Minister of Canada. He's all smiles today, but after the next election, he could go down as the shortest serving Prime Minister in history. Wipe that smirk right off his face. I feel like the elections are rigged, and they're already making a case that Pierre Poilievre is losing badly against Mark Carney and all of his experience. And Mark Carney's moving to take all of Poilievre's talking points away from him, which is unfortunate because Poilievre only really does slogans. He stays away from talking about things people are really interested in, like the 2030 agenda. Like when asked by Mark Friesen, what are you going to do about that? He kind of dodges. When people ask the WEF, Mr. Poilievre, what are you going to do about that? And he says, absolutely not. But he keeps Michelle Rempel in there. He keeps Baird in there. And there's a whole bunch of other WEF affiliated people. And he has a very similar plan to what the Liberals are offering. So not much change there, really. And that's why he's losing, if he's losing. The other thing there is they said that Donald Trump was going to lose until he won. And then they said that, Kamala Harris was going to win. Nobody believed it. But the polls were rigged. Crap. Like absolute nonsense, right? So it could be some of that. But also Pierre Poilievre not resonating with voters because he's not talking about things that the voters care about. And that's important. House of Commons staffer says David Lametti, Jerry Butts, Marco Mendocino, all seated in scandal row. Mark Carney is just like Justin Trudeau. The just like Justin does not hit for me. It doesn't. It just doesn't work. It's not sticky. Here's no, he says, Gerald Butts, former Trudeau advisor and boss of Mark Carney's wife at Eurasia Group, in attendance at Rideau Hall for the swearing in. Isn't that interesting? And I have another one talking about how George Soros has funding and other things going back to Jerry Butts. And I was going to put that there, but I couldn't find it. So it's going to come up through the show, and I'm going to reference this part. So remember that. Put a pin in it. Here's Jared, and they're asking Mark Carney after being sworn in, are you going to trigger an election? And he says, oh yeah, before November. So that's a hard no, right? Like, that's a hard no from him, dog. Here we go.
Can I ask you what your plans are for the next few weeks? Are you going to be bringing back the House? Are you going to be calling an early election? And if so, when should Canadians expect to go to the polls?
Well, they certainly should expect to go to the polls before November. The news...
Honestly, don't insult us, please. Here is signs that say it's going to be well before November. The rumors have been that it's going to be a spring election, that it's going to be called in the next... I heard this week, but I mean, it's Saturday, so it's not happening this week. Maybe next week, but we'll see. I've heard soon. Leah says an election is being called soon. George Shalal says campaign ready. Calgary McKnight, Canada strong. He says Canada strong. Give me a hard eye roll. Team Canada, elbows up. Like, honestly, that is not a good thing to promote in hockey. It's dangerous out there, right? Like, for crying out loud. Here's Jonathan. He says, listen, the oath taken by the Prime Minister of Canada says nothing about serving the people, only the King of England. Tell me again about the sovereignty we need to defend. Yeah, it's a good question. Here's the whole cabinet of Mark Carney, and it again is mostly the cabinet of Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney is the Prime Minister. Dominic LeBlanc is the Minister of the International Trade and Intergovernmental Affairs and President of the King's Privy Council for Canada. Mel Joly is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Intergovernmental Development. Francois Philippe Champagne is the Minister of Finance. Anita Anand is the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. Bill Blair is the Minister of National Defense. Patty Haydu is the Minister of Indigenous Services, which I don't think is a change for her. I think that's the same. Jonathan Wilkinson is the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Jeanette Pettipas Taylor is the President of the Treasury Board. Stephen Guilbeault is the Minister of Canadian Culture and Identity, Parks Canada and Quebec Lieutenant. Chrystia Freeland is the Minister of Transport and Interior Trade. Kamal Kira is the Minister of Health. Gary A, and I can't say his name, and I'll talk about him, but he's the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada and the Minister of Crown, Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs. And then carrying on, just the rest. Richie V is the Chief Government Whip. Stephen McKinnon is the Minister of Jobs and Families. David J. McGuinty, Donald McGuinty's brother, is Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Terry Dugald is Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Nate Erskine-Smith is Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities. Rachel B. is Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Elizabeth B. is Minister of Veterans Affairs, Minister responsible for Canada Revenue Agency. Joanne Thompson is the Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and Canadian Coast Guard. Ariel K. is the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons and Minister of Democratic Institutions. Cody Bios is Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, and Ali Asali, no, I'm getting that wrong. Ali E is a Minister of Government Transformation, Public Service, and Procurement. Did I say Gould? Was Gould in there? Did I miss that? I don't think she's in there. She was the government leader, House leader, so she's a backbencher now. So good riddance. Get out of here, Karina Gould. But that's the cabinet. And here is Michael Chong to tell us 20 of 23 ministers were in Trudeau's cabinet. So how is the new Carney cabinet different? It's not. Meet the new Liberals, same as the old Liberals, right? Same thing. Yep. I wasn't sure I was going to like this. And I'd love to know what software was used to put this together, because I feel like this might be a fun tool. Like, this is Mark Carney, obviously interviewing with CNN's Wolf Blitzer, because Canadians don't watch Canadian TV, they watch American TV. So getting Mark Carney on there will expose him to more Canadians, right? And so Wolf Blitzer calls him out for being an unelected prime minister. And well, it's kind of funny. Here we go.
Mark, how does it feel to waltz into the top job without a single ballot cast in your favor?
Well, Wolf, I like to think of it as a mandate from the people who didn't know they were mandating me. It's efficiency. Why bother with elections when the Liberal Party can just crown me like it's 1694 at the Bank of England?
Right. Democracy's overrated. Now, word is you're bringing back the same geniuses who tanked Canada's economy, Trudeau's old guard. Inflation, housing crisis, Tariffs, they crushed it last time. Why rehire the wrecking crew?
Wolf, these are seasoned experts. They've already proven they can manage a crisis. Who better to fix Canada than the folks who broke it? It's like hiring the arsonist to rebuild your house. Familiarity breeds success.
Brilliant. So,
We'll just leave it there. I mean, he sounds as real and smart as the real Mark Carney, right? That one. Here's Larry Brock. He says, breaking, Mark Carney handpicks Gary A. as Justice Minister. Gary is the same minister who backed Trudeau's failed, reckless, soft-on-crime laws that put violent criminals ahead of law-abiding Canadians. Bill C-5, he voted to eliminate mandatory minimums. Bill C-75, he made it easier for repeat offenders to walk free on bail. The result, violent gun crime is up 116%. Violent crime is up 50%. Hate crimes are up 251%. They redefined what hate crime was to make it more likely. Auto thefts up 46%. The auto theft thing, it's pretty crazy what's going on. There were people in, I was in Mississauga recently and I joked with my wife I was going to go to Square One. She said, screw off, you'll get carjacked. Anyway, now Carney is putting his stamp of approval on the same failed approach. Carney is just 4 more years of Trudeau's crime, chaos, and disorder. 4 more years? I don't remember going through a general election. This was a sham of a leadership race. This wasn't even a general election at all. What are you talking about? 4 more years? Oh my gosh, 4 more years? Oof. Alex says Chrystia Freeland, who does not own a car, has become Canada's newest Minister of Transport, a huge step down from previous transport ministers. Note, previous Liberal transport ministers include a man charged with drunk driving and a Hamas sympathizer who looks like a troll doll, right? So here's Chrystia Freeland accepting transport and being very excited about it, right? Chrystia Freeland says, honored to have been sworn in as Minister of Transport and Internal Trade in Mark Carney's government. I look forward to serving Canadians at this critical moment for our country. So interesting. And here she is being sworn in English and French. I think we can skip it. Can we skip it? We'll listen to the English version. Here we go.
The Honourable Chrystia Freeland, Minister of Transport and Internal Trade. L'Honorable Chrystia Freeland, Ministre du Transport et du Commerce Intérieur.
No red dress. Notable. Did somebody say no red dress today, Chrystia? No, I can't do it. That's enough. So Chrystia Freeland was sworn in. She talked about things, but I don't want to listen to her. Champagne was sworn in as well. Mark Carney promised his government would be new and different, then appoints all the same POSs from the last government as ministers. I never want to hear Canada is a democracy again. Yeah. Yep. Here is Rob. He says, become ungovernable. Danielle Smith says, now that Prime Minister Mark Carney has been officially sworn in, his first item of business should be to call a general election. I'm extremely concerned that this cabinet includes most of the same ministers responsible for the most damaging government policies leveled by Ottawa against Alberta in our over 100-year history. We are gravely concerned that the plans to significantly increase the industrial carbon tax will be just as damaging to Alberta's economy as the consumer carbon tax has been. The Prime Minister also has not yet condemned harmful policies, such as the proposed emissions cap, which continues to threaten our energy sector, Bill C-69, which still hampers critical infrastructure projects. Yeah, this is one of the reasons our productivity is low, because in order to get anything done, you have to go through all sorts of different levels of approvals and get licenses and permits, and they have to be approved through boards, and the boards meet once a month, and there's all sorts of purposeful delays, right? And Bill C-69 is another layer of delay at the federal level, and you need to get rid of crap like that if you want to actually fix the place. I'm not convinced Carney's here to fix anything. Failed bail policies, which continue to put our communities at risk, undermining the safety and security that Albertans deserve. Gun bans that target law-abiding hunters and sport shooters. Open border policies, which are allowing over 2 million people per year to enter Canada. The plastics ban, which puts billions of dollars of investments and thousands of jobs at risk. Yeah, we should have plastic straws, because plastic straws are orders of magnitude better than paper straws. Bill C-59, which bans businesses from communicating about their environmental goals. The electric vehicle mandate, which calls for 100% of new vehicles sold to be electric by 2035. The Sustainable Jobs Act, which aims to transition energy workers to a net zero economy as they work to shut down the energy sector. If the EV mandate gets scrapped, then there's no reason to have any kind of tariffs on Chinese electric cars, because nobody will want electric cars if they could buy gas cars. The reason that they have the EV mandate in place, or the reason that there's a problem and tariffs in place is because they want to protect a market that they intend to make good jobs out of, like the auto industry now. But it'll be like the wind industry. Like there's not good jobs. It's kind of crap jobs. They'll pay you minimum wage, and like there won't be much benefit to it. But they're doing all of this to protect this this transition, because they're basically guaranteed to corner the market. They'll be the only option in town. Like, you can have no vehicle or this electric vehicle. And you know, I'd rather have a horse, thanks. But like, no vehicle or this electric vehicle. And they think that they're going to have the companies who make it on board. But like, the companies don't want to make electric vehicles because the consumers don't want them. So we're getting into a very communist kind of structure for our economy. And that's very bad. And I think that's what Carney represents, really, fundamentally. The Sustainable Jobs Act, which aims to transition energy workers to net zero economy as they work to shut down the energy sector. The clean electricity regulations that will make our electrical grid 100 times less reliable and increase electricity prices by 35%. Our province has always been a leader in innovation, economic growth, and responsible resource development. We will continue to stand up for our industries, push back against policies that unfairly target Alberta, and fight for a fair deal with the Confederation, within the Confederation. Prime Minister must put Canada first and call an election immediately to ensure that whoever is leading the country has a 4-year mandate from all Canadians, especially in light of the ongoing tariff conflict with the United States. Yeah, it's valid points made by Danielle Smith, but here's Jagmeet Singh, and he says, you know, that Mark Carney guy is not Justin Trudeau. And so I think that I'll support them longer. Right? And no election in sight. Gov.exe says Jagmeet Singh now says he's fully open to working with the Liberals and has no problem if the election is delayed. Jagmeet Singh has once again sold out Canadians and put himself first. Yeah, well, that's not surprising. Here's Jagmeet Singh.
Mr. Singh, you mentioned that you want to pass supports for workers. Would you be willing to work with the Carney government to stay in power even after March 24th?
Right now, only 40% of workers are covered by the current EI. They don't have protection. So I want to see those measures put in place. We can make that happen rapidly. We also need an economic plan to create jobs in our own country. I want to see that plan passed first, then an election afterwards.
If it takes more time to get that plan, if it takes more time to get that plan in place, would you be open to cutting a deal with the Carney government to work through to get that plan after March? Well,
yeah, it's going to take time to get that. If that pushes the election back a bit, that's fine. For me, the priority is to get this stuff done first, and then we go to an election. If it takes more time to put in place protections for workers, to put in place an economic plan to create jobs for workers, yeah, I'm prepared to have a bit more time to get that done for workers, and then we go to an election.
Mr. Singh, you mentioned that
he is backtracking again and supporting a non-Trudeau Liberal government again. Here's Melissa. She says PM Carney's wife. Oh, this is the George Soros thing. So remember that George Soros, the Eurasia Group people who are being represented there by Gerald Butts, Mark Carney's wife's boss at Eurasia Group, hanging out at the swearing in of the new Prime Minister. Here's Melissa. She says, Prime Minister Carney's wife is a senior advisor at Eurasia Group. Government of Canada has given Eurasia Group a lot of money. Also, Soros's Open Society has given a lot of money to Eurasia Group. Crazy, right? So you've got February 28th, 24, they got $500,000. March 17th, 21, they got $383,000. In 2019, they got $225,000 at Eurasia Group. So now Mark Carney controls the government, and the government is giving his wife's company a crap ton of money. This is, again, the Green Slush Fund. Similar, but now it's got the Prime Minister involved, right? And Trudeau's former advisor and the Prime Minister's wife. So it's weird. It's just weird. It's all really, really strange. VP Mike says, Canada, Mr. Carney as a new Prime Minister, surely your first duty will be to unprorogue government and meet with Trump to work on tariffs. Carney, nope, I'm off to Europe for a few weeks vacation. So yeah, Carney's going to coordinate their response to Trump's tariffs in Europe, because what better way to negotiate with Trump than go hang out with Ursula von der Leyen, right? Like, we're going to build Europe's army on the backs of Canadian taxpayers. You're welcome, because we can't fund Ukraine anymore, I guess, because that war is over. But don't worry, Europe will start a new one that we have to fund. Ursula von der Leyen says, congratulations to Mark Carney on becoming Canada's next Prime Minister. Europe and Canada are trusted friends and partners. Today, this relationship is more crucial than ever. I look forward to working with you to defend democracy, free and fair trade, and our shared values. And Eddie says, these people that always talk about defending democracy, it's the likes of them that trample democracy, and I think that that's true. And Roland says, Prime Minister Carney will travel to Europe. I mentioned a few Can Europe opportunities in this interview. One, coordinate upcoming military investments to strengthen Canada, EU, UK industrial supply chains. deepen cooperation and emerging tech, including AI, coordinate a response to Trump tariffs. So Carney's going to the EU to coordinate a response on Trump tariffs. And like, I don't think that's great. If you're the new prime minister and you want to fix relations with Donald Trump and the United States, probably the first call should be, hey, Mr. Trump, can I come down to Mar-a-Lago and have a round of golf with you, buddy? Because, man, I'd love to talk. Like, we could talk about all sorts of things, like the 51st state and tariffs. Like, but no, I mean, don't unprorogue Parliament. Head off to Europe. Sounds super fun. Are you going to sing Bohemian Rhapsody? No? Are you going to act inappropriately at a funeral? Oh, man, like the good old days, right? Let's talk about the carbon tax, because it's not complicated, but it's not straightforward either. Here is CBC News. They're reporting Mark Carney scraps consumer carbon tax in first move as new prime minister. Carney's cabinet ended the tax through what's known as an order in council. And so here is Stephen Guilbeault, and they're saying, hey, like, you didn't really scrap the carbon tax. You just reduced it, right? And Guilbeault says, yeah, we reduced it to zero. And they're like, yeah, but you just reduced it. Like, that means you could just raise it anytime you want, right? And Guilbeault walks away.
Prime Minister Carney can actually just get rid of the carbon tax like this?
Well, basically, following a decision by cabinet, the price, the consumer price on pollution will be brought down to zero. So it's a regulatory measure to bring the price to zero.
So essentially, it's not a removal of it; it's just lowering the price of it.
It's bringing it to zero.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I get it. Zero. Thanks for clarifying, man. Very interesting stuff. So it's kind of a trick, right? And you have to have some theater if you're going to play a trick. Like when the magician's doing something in his left hand, he has to be doing something in his right hand that's more interesting so he can complete the trick with his left hand and you don't notice. So Mark Carney says, you know, that very Trumpian trick of doing a signing and an announcement and things like that, that's super good. So we'll do that. So he does that. Here we go. Sure. Oh, I thought this was the longer clip. There's a longer clip where he's talking about it a little bit more. And I thought, okay, this is maybe the longer one. Maybe not. This is theater, says Keith. Section 166 of the Act dictates cabinet to issue an order in council to change the carbon tax, but order in councils are signed by the governor general, not the prime minister. Is Carney trying to mimic President Trump signing an executive order? And Mark Carney says the consumer carbon tax is not working. It's becoming too divisive at a time when Canada needs to be united. As my government's first order of business, I've canceled it. Here we go. No, it's the same clip. Really? Just 5 seconds of signing? There's nothing? You don't even say anything? I've seen a clip where he's talking during that whole thing. So apologies that I don't have it. I thought it was the same one. John Fraser says the Liberal Party did not terminate the consumer carbon tax. That can only happen when Parliament returns. This was political theater. And I mean, impactful political theater. Most people will think, oh yeah, it's gone. And I mean, it is gone. Here's Dan McTeague with carbon taxes apparently coming off today. Gas prices to fall 20 cents a litre. Diesel down 24 cents this weekend, except for Quebec and British Columbia. So sorry, Quebec and British Columbia. You've got Dave Eby, who... there is some pushback against this. I'm going to be the emperor for a couple of years. Don't worry about it, okay? So we'll see how that works out. Anyway, the food professor says Prime Minister Carney canceling the consumer carbon tax does not eliminate the carbon tax entirely, as it compounds across the supply chain, ultimately impacting food prices. But you knew that already. So food professor is saying this is a little bit, but not everything we need. Michael Barrett says Mark Carney isn't scrapping the carbon tax. He's just pausing it to get through the election. He could have told Trudeau to axe it. He didn't. He could have recalled Parliament to kill it. He didn't. Don't fall for it. Carbon tax Carney is just like Justin. So it's going to be hard to convince Canadians that... I was concerned that Pierre Poilievre was going to be good, and just good enough that it would be difficult to convince Canadians that he is not the right person. He's a globalist, and really we need somebody. I think probably we need 338 independent people in there, and I don't know how you choose a prime minister from that, but I think you can choose a prime minister, and I think you can choose an opposition leader to hold the government accountable. But I digress. I think that fundamentally, when you're in a situation where I lost my train of thought. Darn. Here's Poilievre basically saying that this is not what it seems, and I'll think about what I was trying to say, and then when I remember, I'll tell you.
Only they want you to be fooled, and they want to take 4 terms. Carbon tax Carney will try later today to pull another fast one. This one's going to be very sneaky, very sneaky. I call it the carbon tax con job. I told you this was going to happen.
I remembered. Basically, he's going to be good enough that people will just be fine with it, right? And not want to do any kind of hard work to fix the real problems. Like, it's not a win condition to get things back to the way they were in 2018, because the way they were in 2018 was on a path to COVID and a path to tyranny, really. And so we need to actually clean out the rot and actually get rid of the crap. And now Poilievre is worried that Carney is going to be just good enough that people are going to be like, meh, fine, things are fine enough, and it's not a win. In the same way I was concerned that Poilievre wasn't going to be a win, and I want people to demand more. I think Poilievre is concerned that Carney is going to be good enough, and people aren't going to demand the more of his conservative government. That's what I think. Okay, there we go.
Happen, by the way. Don't say I didn't warn you. He's going to hide the consumer carbon tax for 60 days. And if he's reelected, he'll bring it back bigger than ever with no rebate. Let's be clear. He says that the carbon tax he intends to bring in after the election will be a, quote, shadow carbon tax. And we know that he loves carbon taxes because he publicly advised Trudeau over the last 5 years to raise the taxes even more. But here's what I've got. This is the Liberal carbon tax law. This law cannot be eliminated unless Parliament resumes to vote it down. Mr. Carney could have asked Trudeau to do that months ago. Mr. Carney could have reconvened Parliament today to vote this law down, but he won't. He will keep the carbon tax law in place even while he temporarily hides the carbon tax from the gas pump for 60 days leading up to the election. And after that election, if God forbid he were reelected, there would be a bigger carbon tax than ever before, because Carney would no longer need your vote, but he'd still need your money.
I don't think he's incorrect about that. And Joe Biden did the same thing in the lead up to the 2024 election. Gas prices were coming down. They were using the National Reserve. I think they emptied the National Reserve. Trump talks about it often being emptied, but I don't know how accurate that is. But they were doing a whole bunch of things on purpose to drive that price down, because the price of gas, if it's too high, drives votes away from the incumbent, right? From the person who's in the office. So Carney is making a play to make it comfortable for Canadians, so we forget how pissed off we are at Justin Trudeau, and we'll vote for his Liberals, Carney's Liberals, who are the same as Justin Trudeau's Liberals. And bingo, bango, bongo, then he can get in and raise the carbon tax more. Food professor says nearly 400 academics signed a letter last year supporting the carbon tax despite multiple inaccuracies. They claimed it wouldn't fuel inflation. It does. That most Canadians get more back than they pay. They don't, when factoring in supply chain costs, and that it won't hurt competitiveness. It has, and it's totally tanked our productivity. When you tax an input, that screws your productivity completely. And you can see that in the uncoupling of Canada's GDP from the United States GDP. It started when the carbon tax came in under Trudeau, period. Like, I wouldn't say indisputable, but my goodness, I think it's a good argument. A reckless policy, says the food professor. Now Carney admits all of this. Next time you see academics pushing an agenda, be skeptical. I don't know that Carney admits it. Here are the reporters talking to these guys, and basically, it's hard to hear, so I'm not going to play it, but basically they're saying if they lowered the carbon tax to zero, they can raise it anytime they want, and the people are just kind of laughing about it, right? So it is what it is, and yes, they can raise it to whatever they want. Goodness. So wild and crazy stuff going on with Canada's new prime minister, with the carbon taxes, with manipulating people, playing games with people. And playing games is maybe not the right word, but trying to make it seem comfortable for people so they relax into it and don't think about it too much, because people just want to live their lives. They don't want to think about politics any more than they have to, right? And so these Liberals are trying to put you into that position. You know, you're sitting on the couch and you're watching a show and it's later, but it's normal, and you don't even realize you're falling asleep, and then all of a sudden you're like, what happened? I didn't even catch the rest of that show, man. I was into it, I was watching, and then gone, right? And so that's what the Liberals are hoping to do with your interest in politics and your hate for Trudeau. They just want to put you to sleep. And it's scary stuff because we're watching it in real time. Thanks for watching, everybody who's watching the free show. There's a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to go and talk about Trump tariffs and food and censorship and our grab bag of governments is a little bit later, but it's on the paid show. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful